Another type of coloration isn't referring to the color of the organism itself, but more of does it look like something else. So we refer to these as mimicry, organisms that mimic the coloration of other organisms. So there's two types of mimicry. We'll talk about the next one on the next slide. The first type of mimicry we'll talk about is Mullerian mimicry. And with Mullerian mimicry, you have multiple species of organisms, different species, but multiple species of organisms that have similar colors or potentially similar behaviors. The behavior one we'll touch on more on the next type of mimicry. So the easiest example is what we see here on the left. The stinging things, honeybees, yellow jackets, wasps, hornets. You see black and yellow, and usually you don't stick around long enough to be like, oh, well that there, sir, looks like the stinging wasp. No, you're like black and yellow, this is bad. And so all these organisms are stinging insects, all of these organisms can hurt you, and all of them look similar to one another. This is in these organisms' best interest, because if you have a predator, probably a bird, if you have a bird that avoids hornets because they're like, oh, black and yellow, that's bad, I'm going to get stung, I'm going to avoid that. Well, that bird is probably also going to look at a yellow jacket, also has that black and yellow, and be like, black and yellow is bad, I'm going to avoid it because it's probably going to hurt me. And maybe it tries, like, oh, well, it's smaller, but then it stings it, and it's like, oh, okay, even the small black and yellows are really bad. And at that point, the bird is just like, I'm going to avoid all black and yellow. Even if they've never tried to eat a honeybee before, even if that never been stung by a wasp before, that similar coloration between equally bad organisms, equally harmful organisms, kind of protects all of these organisms. That bird never had to come across a honeybee. It just had to come across at least one, maybe two other species with the same coloration to learn its lesson of avoid this. You can use humans. Humans are a great example because most humans are like, oh, I see this organism, it has these stripes. I don't know what it is, but I know it must be bad. And again, evolution. I keep tying this back to evolution because it's just so kind of cool, like seeing how evolution is kind of shaping these things. Hornets that looked more like yellow jackets, maybe birds in certain areas knew that yellow jackets were bad, and hornets that looked more like yellow jackets got less predated upon. Hornets that were mainly black or mainly yellow maybe were predated on more because there wasn't that connection there that, oh, these are bad. So the more they look alike, the more likely they'll get treated similarly. This picture here, although the colorations are a little bit different, these are 8. These are 8 different species of butterflies, some of which look very similar to each other, especially these bottom two ones. These are 2 different species between both of those pairs. All of these are poisonous. You notice all of them have pretty much the same exact shape and at least have the basic colors. They all have black, they have some sort of yellowy orange color. So they all poisonous, all look similar. If you're an organism that's trying to eat those, like a grasshopper or a frog, maybe, you don't need to eat all 8 of those to realize they're bad. You might eat 1, maybe you eat 2, and you kind of learn your lesson like, oh, that shape, those colors, those are bad. I'm going to avoid them. So that's Mullerian mimicry, that the organisms that look similar to each other are all harmful. They're all poisonous. They all sting. And I make that distinction because the second type of mimicry is Batesian mimicry, where if you're looking at similar organisms, similar colorations, one of them is harmful, right? One of them is poisonous, one of them will hurt you, one of them will sting you, but the other organism with the same coloration is actually harmless. It's not doing anything. So we'll talk about this example up here because these are very different organisms. We have a green parrot snake and this hawk moth larva, aka a caterpillar. And if you look at the face of this caterpillar, you're like, oh hell no, that's a snake, right? But it's a caterpillar. The caterpillar is not going to bite you. But if you're a bird that's up in the air and you're like, oh, I see something wriggling down there. That might be a caterpillar for me to eat. You come in close, and then you get closer. You're like, oh, snap, that's a snake. Snakes love birds, and it flies away. So this caterpillar is kind of getting this protection of looking similar to a snake. By looking similar to a snake, it's getting predated on less. It's living more. It's reproducing more. It's passing on those traits to the next generation. So this is across very different species. Going back to our wasp example, there is this fly called the hoverfly. You notice that it has this black and yellow, but they're not harmful at all. You could chill with it like on your hand. You guys can become best friends. They're not harmful at all. But most organisms don't know that, right? They have associated this black and yellow as being negative, as being bad, as being dangerous. And so they avoid everything that's black and yellow. Hoverfly gets the greatest part of this, right? Hoverflies get to live, and they don't even have to be poisonous. They don't even have to sting anything. Everyone avoids them because they're like, ooh, I think you're bad. And the hoverfly's over there like, I ain't bad. My favorite example to talk about, because humans are a great example of why this mimicry works, is these two different snakes. The eastern coral snake is a very venomous snake, and the scarlet king snake, which can be found in a lot of the same areas, non-venomous. It still might bite you, but you're not going to get crazy sick from it. You're not going to need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in anti-venom. Now imagine you're hiking, and you see a snake, and you can't remember. You're like, shit. They have red, they've got black, and they've got yellow. And I can't remember which one it is. There actually is a saying, and I should have looked it up, but I always forget. I think it's like if red touches yellow, you're a dead fellow. If red touches black, you're okay, Jack? Sure, we'll use that. But let's say you're hiking and you can't remember. You're like, oh, if black touches yellow, well, then you're screwed, right? Because both of them have black touches yellow. So either way, you're probably going to, and you should, avoid that snake. You're like, black and red, those are bad. I'm going to avoid that, right? Predators of snakes are going to avoid it too. They can't remember because they're so similar. They can't remember, wait, is this the non-venomous or the venomous one? You guys on your hike, you sure as hell should not be sitting there being like, you know what, let me Google this. Let me figure out. I don't know why I'm opening a book for Google, but you're Googling it and you're like, oh, okay, that's what red versus yellow. No, you just walk away. Preferably run away. Don't get close to it. Just leave it alone. So Batesian mimicry is really successful. It's almost as successful as Mullerian mimicry. Mullerian mimicry, all the organisms that look like each other, like these two snakes, they're all harmful. Batesian mimicry, only one of them is harmful, and there's a non-harmful or a harmless species that's kind of mimicking that coloration, and they kind of get the benefits of getting predated upon less. Before you guys move on, all of these were great examples of coloration that was being mimicked. In this video, because they don't narrate it in the video, so I'm going to narrate it first and then you go watch it. There's a snake. It's a black racer snake. They're non-venomous. They're pretty docile. We have them here in Maryland. Some of them rattle their tail. Now, rattlesnakes have structures that when they shake their tail really fast, it creates a sound. If you hear that sound, you better move away very fast because they are quite venomous. Black racers aren't though. But there's some organisms that shake their tail really rapidly against leaves. And it makes a sound like a rattlesnake. And again, when you hear that sound, you're not like, I wonder if I can find where this rattlesnake is. It has already warned you you've come too close. You don't get closer to find it. You turn around and go the other way. So this video is showing someone was able to actually capture that this black racer, this non-venomous snake, copying the behavior of a venomous snake, in this case the rattlesnake. So it's pretty cool just kind of seeing that. And again, from the human perspective, oh hell no, if I hear that sound, I'm not going to be like, I wonder if it's a rattlesnake or if it's just a black racer that's mimicking a rattlesnake. That is not an answer you want to find out, especially if it is a rattlesnake. So Ked, pause here, Watch this video that is popping up above me and then come on back. The last kind of coloration we'll talk about is used by both prey, which is what everyone else has been talking about, the mimicries, the aposematic, that was really a prey coloration defense. This defense is used by both predators and prey, and that's cryptic coloration. You also know this as camouflage, but the more scientific name is cryptic coloration. So whether it's predators or whether it's prey, the main goal of not being eaten, or the main goal of catching prey, is to not be seen. So if you can not be seen, you're doing pretty good for yourself. This can be very simple, such as up here, and I'm actually going to get my pen out so that you guys can see. This is an owl that we're looking at. And this one, very simply, is just colors, right? It just has this gray, blackish, white coloration that makes it blend in really well with trees. And as a predator, if your prey can't detect you, you're going to be more successful as a predator. You're going to have to, or you will only need to expend a small amount of energy to get food. Whereas if this owl was bright pink, it would be a lot harder for it to hunt because its prey would know it's coming, meaning it has to expend more energy to get food. And so again, evolution is favoring blending in more because you're likely to be more successful. Same thing with our prey items. So here we have a caterpillar. I'm tracing the main body, but it has all of these extensions coming off of it. That blends in very nicely. If you are a bird trying to eat a caterpillar, you probably don't see it at all. You could be standing right next to it and not see it. So for prey, it's very obvious, right? If predators can't see you, you live, you survive another day. There's tons of examples of camouflage out there. Organisms that look like sticks, organisms that look like flowers, just different ways to blend in with your environment. Or you can be like crazy cool, like the cuttlefish, and just be like, I'm gonna change my colors to match the environment. But again, this cryptic coloration is really being used by predators and prey. It is a defense mechanism in prey, but it's also an adaptation of predators in order to be more successful. So that is where we are ending. This is actually the official last slide of the semester. So again, in summary, looking at those community interactions, focusing on the predator-prey relationship, there's a lot of defenses that our prey have to avoid being eaten. And our predators have some adaptations as well. So with that, go explore more. And when you're outside, see if you can find some of these organisms.